My name is Elias Thorne, and my life is a testament to the quiet beauty of forgotten things. I find solace in the weary sigh of old floorboards, the intricate dance of dust motes in a sliver of afternoon light, and the ghost of a story etched into a tarnished brass doorknob. By trade, I am a restorer of buildings, but in my heart, I am a keeper of memories. My company, Hearth and Vine, isn't about profit margins and market shares. It's about breathing life back into spaces that the world has deemed obsolete. We take dilapidated warehouses, abandoned chapels, and crumbling city manors, and we listen to them. We learn their history, honor their architecture, and then, ever so gently, we coax them back into the present, transforming them into venues where new stories can begin. I work from an office on the top floor of what was once the Port Blossom Gazette building, a proud, Beaux-Arts structure that had been left to rot for 50 years. Now, light streams through 10-foot arched windows, illuminating the original oak paneling I spent 6 months personally stripping and refinishing. Below me, the city of Port Blossom stretches out, a mosaic of brick, steel, and green that I have come to know intimately, one decaying facade at a time. My family, however, sees none of this. To them, I am still the boy who walked away from a full scholarship in architecture at a prestigious university. They see a dreamer who abandoned a clear, respectable path to dabble in old buildings. They picture me in a dusty workshop, a well-meaning but misguided hobbyist, eternally on the verge of needing a real job. They have no idea that Hearth and Vine is the parent company of Keystone Legacy Group, a portfolio of curated hospitality businesses that has quietly and carefully become one of the most respected names in the Pacific Northwest. The call came on a Tuesday morning, soft and persistent, interrupting the calm of my work. I was sketching a concept for a new conservatory at Graywood Estate, one of our properties north of the city, when my assistant, Lena, chimed in on the intercom. Her voice was, as always, a model of serene efficiency. "Elias, you have a call from a Ms. Sarah Jenkins at Evergreen Planners. It's regarding the Hayes-Vance wedding." I felt a familiar, gentle pang in my chest. The Hayes-Vance wedding. My younger brother, Leo, was getting married. I set down my charcoal pencil, the fine dust clinging to my fingertips. I remembered the conversation 6 months ago, my mother's voice tight with the stress she was trying to hide. Leo and his fiancée, Clara, were struggling. The wedding of their dreams was slipping through their fingers, a casualty of tight budgets and the soaring costs of, well, everything. "We just don't know how we'll manage, Eli," she'd sighed. "Clara's family can't help much, and Leo is so proud." The next day, I'd made a quiet call. An anonymous contribution of $25,000 was made to their wedding fund, a deposit to secure the magnificent gilded ballroom downtown and the best catering service in the city. It was a gift from a family benefactor, a simple gesture to ensure my brother, the golden child who had followed the path our parents laid out for him with unwavering dedication, would have a day as perfect as the life he was building. They didn't need to know it came from the family's resident black sheep. "Put her through, Lena," I said, picking up the receiver. "Elias Thorne speaking." "Mr. Thorne, hello. This is Sarah from Evergreen Planners." Her voice was unusually tense, a stark contrast to her usual cheerful professionalism. "I'm calling about the Hayes-Vance wedding. I'm afraid I have some rather delicate news regarding your attendance." I leaned back in my leather chair, the old springs groaning softly. My gaze drifted to the window, to the distant silhouette of the Cascade Mountains, their peaks dusted with the first snow of the season. "Go on, Sarah." "Your parents, Mr. and Mrs. Hayes, contacted us yesterday," she said, the words coming out in a careful, rehearsed rush. "They have requested that we formally remove you from the guest list. They mentioned a private family matter and were quite specific that you should not attend either the ceremony or the reception." The words didn't crash over me like a wave. They seeped in, a slow, cold tide rising around my ankles. It was a familiar feeling, the sting of being misunderstood, of being quietly, politely erased. I kept my voice even, a skill honed over years of disappointing family dinners. "I see. However," Sarah continued, her voice dropping, "that's not the most difficult part of this call. Mrs. Hayes also inquired about the $25,000 deposit. She was under the impression that since the contribution was from family, they would be able to retain it, even with your change in status. She said they had already allocated those funds for non-refundable expenses. For a long moment, the only sound was the gentle hum of the city far below. The audacity of it was breathtaking. To be cast out, yet have my shadow, my contribution, remain. They wanted the fruit of my labor, but not the man who labored. They wanted the warmth of the hearth, but not the one who tended the fire. My family, who believed I barely scraped by, had no concept of the world I had built around them, a world they were currently standing in, unknowingly, as they planned this wedding. Mr. Thorne? Are you still there? Yes, Sarah. I'm here. My voice was quiet, but a new resolve was settling within me, solid as the century-old foundation of the building I sat in. I need you to do something for me. I need you to cancel the wedding. A sharp intake of breath on the other end. I'm sorry, what? Sir, you can't. You're not the client. You're not the groom. Sarah, I said, my tone gentle but absolute. What is the name of your company? Evergreen Wedding Planners, sir. And who is the parent company of Evergreen Planners? I could hear the faint rustle of papers, the soft clicks of a keyboard. That would be Keystone Event Management. And who is the sole proprietor of Keystone Event Management? A longer pause. The silence was thick with dawning realization. Keystone Legacy Group. That's right, I confirmed softly. And I am Elias Thorne, founder and owner of Keystone Legacy Group. So yes, Sarah. I can, in fact, cancel this wedding. Please cancel the reservation for the Gilded Ballroom. I paused. That's one of mine. Also, please cancel the contract with Silver Thread Catering. They're mine too. The floral arrangements from Bloom and Barrow, the photography package from Meridian Light Studios, the string quartet they booked, all under the Keystone umbrella. Mr. Thorne. Elias. I had no idea. Her voice was a whisper. Few people do, I said, a faint, sad smile touching my lips. There's more. The block of rooms they reserved at the Obsidian Hotel for out-of-town guests. Mine. The rehearsal dinner at the Peregrine Bistro. Mine. Even the vintage Bentley they booked through Heritage Transport. That's also one of ours. I could hear her breathing, shallow and quick. But, sir, the wedding is less than a month away. There are over 200 guests. All the other premier venues in Port Blossom will be booked solid for a Saturday in June. It would be impossible for them to find replacements. That, I said, the words feeling both foreign and necessary in my mouth, is no longer my concern. Please cancel everything. Refund any guest deposits for their hotel rooms immediately. As for my family, you can send them a final invoice for any non-refundable expenses incurred by our vendors, less my initial $25,000 deposit, which I will be retaining as a cancellation fee. Elias, this will devastate them. They made their choice, Sarah, I replied, my voice softer now. They decided the family would be better without me. I am simply honoring their decision. After I hung up the phone, I didn't move. I sat in my sun-drenched office, a space built on a foundation of second chances, and contemplated the walls I was now being forced to build around my own heart. I was 31 years old. It had been 10 years since I'd walked away from my architecture program, not out of failure, but out of a profound, unshakable conviction that the blueprints of my life were meant to be drawn on a different kind of paper. While my family lamented my lost potential, I was laying the first stones of my own legacy. It began with a single, derelict carriage house in the Old Tannery district. I bought it with the entirety of my savings and the money from a small inheritance from my grandmother, the only one who had ever understood my fascination with the past. I did most of the work myself, stripping floors, repointing brick, learning the forgotten arts of plaster and leaded glass. I slept on an air mattress in the loft, my days filled with the scent of sawdust and turpentine, my nights with the quiet satisfaction of creation. I called it the Chandler Rooms and began renting it out for small, intimate gatherings. My family's reaction was polite, pained condescension. It's good you have a little project to keep you busy, Eli, my father had said, patting my shoulder at Christmas that year. 2 years later, I acquired a defunct riverside warehouse. Hearth and Vine was born. While Leo was acing his exams at law school, I was negotiating with city councils, navigating zoning laws, and managing construction crews. By the 5th year, I owned 4 properties and had begun to vertically integrate. I sought out other artisans, other businesses whose philosophies mirrored my own, a catering company that prized local, seasonal ingredients, a floral designer who foraged for wildflowers, a photography studio that shot only on film. I brought them under the Keystone Legacy Group umbrella, offering them stability and resources while preserving their unique identities. To my family, I was still just Elias with his party planning hobby. When I purchased the Obsidian, a boutique hotel downtown that was hemorrhaging money, I mentioned it over a tense Sunday brunch. "I'm getting into accommodations," I'd said. My mother had just nodded, her smile tight, before asking Leo about an upcoming mock trial. They heard my words, but they never truly listened. They saw the dreamer, the dropout, and their vision was so clouded by their own definition of success that they couldn't see the empire I was building in plain sight. My phone buzzed, pulling me from my reverie. A text from my mother. "Elias, we need to discuss your recent attitude. Your sullenness is casting a pall over this happy time for Leo and Clara. After much discussion, your father and I feel it's best if you don't come to the wedding. We will, of course, keep the funds you so kindly contributed, as they have already been spent. We hope you understand this is for the best." I stared at the message at the clinical, dismissive words. Your sullenness. They had mistaken my quiet hurt for petulance. They had pathologized my pain to justify their exclusion. A slow, sad smile spread across my face. I typed back a simple reply. Understood. I hope you all have a wonderful celebration. 30 minutes later, my phone rang. It was my father. His voice, usually so measured and academic, was laced with an unfamiliar thread of panic. "Elias, I just received the most bizarre series of emails. The gilded ballroom, the caterer, the photographer, they've all canceled. They're claiming the entire event has been called off. There must be some sort of clerical error." "There's no error, Dad," I said calmly. "What do you mean, no error? We have contracts. This is completely unprofessional." "You had contracts with businesses owned by Keystone Legacy Group," I explained, my voice as even as a newly planed board. "And Keystone Legacy Group is owned by me." The silence on the line was profound. I could almost hear the gears in his methodical brain grinding to a halt, refusing to process the information. "Elias, what on earth are you talking about?" "I'm talking about the fact that you uninvited me from my own brother's wedding while informing me you intended to keep the $25,000 I gave you for it. So, I canceled the services my companies were providing for it." A choked sound came from his end of the line. You paid for the venue?" "I paid the initial deposit that secured everything, yes. The venue, the caterer, the hotel, the flowers, the music. All of it runs through companies that I own and operate." "Congratulations, Dad. You just disinvited the man who was underwriting the entire event." Another long, stunned silence. Then a different voice, my mother's, thin and reedy. "Elias? Darling? I think there's been a terrible misunderstanding." "No, Mom. The understanding is perfectly clear. You made a choice that I was not welcome. Therefore, my businesses are no longer welcome to participate." "Businesses?" My father cut back in, his voice cracking. "Plural? What businesses?" "You restore old buildings, you plan little parties." For the first time that day, a genuine laugh escaped my lips, though it held no mirth. It was a laugh of pure, unadulterated irony. 10 years, and he still thought I planned birthday parties. "Dad," I said, the word feeling heavy. "I own Keystone Legacy Group. We operate 17 distinct properties, including 6 hotels, 9 event venues, and a collection of top-tier service providers across 3 states. We don't just plan parties. We create experiences. Our projected revenue for this fiscal year is over 9 figures. Check the Pacific Northwest Business Journal. We were the cover story last spring." I heard muffled, frantic whispers in the background. My mother came back on the line, her voice trembling now, fragile as antique glass. "Elias, we had no idea. You never told us you were this successful." The old wound, the one they had just reopened, ached with a dull, familiar throb. I tried to tell you, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. At every holiday, every birthday, for the last 10 years, I have tried to share my life with you. Remember when I told you I'd acquired the Obsidian Hotel? You said it was nice that I had a full-time project now and asked if I was finally thinking about my retirement fund. When I left my architecture program, it wasn't because I was failing. It was because I saw a different way to build. While Leo was studying torts, I was signing contracts and revitalizing a piece of our city's history. You just never saw the value in it. My father cleared his throat, the sound rough and uncertain. Elias, son, surely we can sort this out. This is your brother's wedding. My brother's wedding is no longer my problem, I replied, the boundary feeling like a wall of solid stone. You made that clear. You didn't want me there, remember? You were worried my sullenness might spoil your perfect day. My other line beeped. It was Lena, patching through another call. Sarah Jenkins from Evergreen Planners. Dad, I have to go. Elias, wait. I clicked over. Sarah. Elias, my phone has been ringing off the hook. Your brother, your parents, Clara's mother, they're all calling, desperate to rebook. They don't seem to understand. I've explained that with less than a month's notice, every comparable venue in the region is completely booked. The caterers, the florists, they're committed. There are literally no high-end options available. And what about our other properties? I asked, already knowing the answer. Graywood Estate? Booked for a corporate retreat, sir. The Chandler rooms are too small. The Riverside Foundry has a gala that night. You've built a successful enterprise, Elias. Your venues are in demand. I closed my eyes, picturing my mother's face, likely pale with panic, my father's, a mask of confused frustration, and Leo's. I wasn't sure what Leo's face would look like. He had always lived in a world where things simply worked out for him. My mother called me crying, Sarah said softly, her voice full of genuine pity. She said there are 200 people, family flying in from Ireland and the East Coast. She's begging Elias. She asked if there was any solution. At any cost. Any solution. The words hung in the air. I thought of all the years of being minimized, of my passion being treated as a quaint eccentricity. A solution was not about punishment. It was about education. All right, Sarah, I said slowly. Here is the solution. They can have the wedding at the Sunken Garden at Graywood Estate. But, sir, you just said it was booked for a corporate. The retreat is in the main manor. The Sunken Garden is a separate, more intimate space. It's not typically used for events of this size, but we can make it work. Maximum capacity is 80 guests. 80? But they've invited over 200. Then they will have to make some difficult phone calls, I said evenly. The package will include on-site catering from the Graywood kitchens, a simple, elegant menu. Floral arrangements from the estate's own greenhouses. One of our staff photographers for 4 hours. The total cost for this exclusive, last-minute booking will be $100,000, payable in full, in advance. Sarah gasped. Sir, that's 4 times the original budget for less than half the wedding. That is the offer, Sarah. They wanted to exclude me from their grand celebration while benefiting from my generosity. Now they have an opportunity to have a much smaller celebration at a fair market price for a last-minute booking at one of the most exclusive venues in the state. And there is one more condition. Yes, sir. My invitation is to be reinstated. And they will call me personally to ask. I hung up the phone and turned back to my window. The sun was lower now, casting long shadows across the city. My city. I felt no triumph, only a deep, resonant sadness and the quiet, firm conviction that I had finally, after a decade of silence, spoken in a language my family might understand. 3 hours later, my personal cell phone, the number only my family and closest friends have, rang. It was Leo. Elias? What in God's name is going on? His voice was a raw mix of fury and bewilderment. You're getting married, Leo, I said quietly. Or at least you were. Don't play games with me. Mom is hysterical. Dad's been on the phone all afternoon, and every person he talks to tells him you own their company. What is this, some kind of sick, elaborate joke? It's not a joke, Leo. It's my life's work. Your life's work? This is my wedding. You're ruining my wedding. Your wedding, I repeated, the words tasting like ash that I was helping to finance. Your wedding that I was uninvited from. Your wedding that our family decided I was not worthy of attending. Tell me, how was I ruining it before I canceled everything? He was quiet for a moment. The anger in his voice subsided, replaced by a flicker of confusion. We thought it would be less awkward if you weren't there. You always seem so distant at family things. Distant? I asked, a hollow laugh catching in my throat. Leo, I'm distant because for 10 years, none of you have shown the slightest bit of genuine interest in my life. You see what you want to see, the screw-up, the college dropout. You've never once tried to see me. I took a breath, the question I'd held in for years finally surfacing. Did you even know that I paid the deposit for your venue? The silence was heavier this time. Mom said a benefactor helped out, he mumbled. I didn't know it was you. Of course you didn't. Because you never ask. You never thought to ask how my little business was doing or what I was working on. You just assumed. You all did. I could hear him breathing on the other end of the line, the sound of a worldview beginning to fracture. I'll make you a deal, Leo, I continued, my voice softening. You can have your wedding. It won't be the one you planned, but it will be beautiful. But I want 3 things. First, a real, heartfelt apology from you, Mom and Dad. Second, an acknowledgement that you were wrong about me. And third, my invitation. Not as an obligation, but because you actually want your brother there to see you get married. Eli, of course we want you there. Do you? I challenged gently. Or do you want access to my venues? Think carefully before you answer. He let out a long, shuddering sigh. That's not fair. Fair? I asked, my voice rising slightly for the first time. You uninvited your own brother to your wedding. You were going to use my money to pay for a party you wouldn't let me attend. Don't talk to me about what's fair, Leo. Talk to me about what's right. I need to talk to Clara. And Mom and Dad. You do that, I said. The offer for Greywood is on the table for 24 hours. That evening, an unfamiliar number called me. I almost let it go to voicemail, but something prompted me to answer. Elias? It's Clara. Leo's fiancé. Her voice was steady, but I could hear the strain in it. Clara. Congratulations on your engagement. Thank you, she said. A beat of silence. Listen, I feel like I am in the middle of a story I don't understand, but I am beginning to see the plot. I had no idea about any of this, Elias. Not about the money, and certainly not about, well, everything else. Most people don't, I said quietly. I've been online all evening, she confessed. Keystone Legacy Group. Hearth and Vine. The Obsidian, Greywood Estate. Elias, you own half the places I've had pinned on my dream wedding board since I was a teenager. It's incredible. It's been a good decade, I allowed. Elias, I need to apologize, she said, and the sincerity in her voice was a balm on a raw wound. I was there when they made the decision to uninvite you. I didn't say anything. I should have. I'm so sorry. Why didn't you? I asked, genuinely curious. Honestly, she sighed. Because Leo and his parents painted a picture of you. The sensitive, struggling artist. The brother who drifted away and couldn't handle responsibility. I believed them. And now I see that the person who is drifting, the person who doesn't understand, isn't you. It's them. They don't know you at all. I could hear the emotion thickening her voice. Elias, whatever happens with this wedding, I would be truly honored to have you there. Not because of your business or your beautiful venues, but because you're Leo's brother. And because you were willing to give so generously to your family, even when they didn't deserve it. What is Leo saying? I asked. He's processing, she said. I think his entire perception of his big brother just crumbled, and he's trying to figure out what to build in its place. It's a lot to take in. And your parents are terrified. They've spent a decade treating you with pity, and now they're faced with the fact that you might be the most capable person they know. Success isn't everything, Clara. No, she agreed softly. But respect is. And they have failed to give you that for a very long time. The next day, Sarah called with an update. The Hayes family had accepted the terms. The full payment for the Greywood Estate package had been wired to their account. And the other conditions? I asked. Yes, sir, Sarah confirmed. Your father called me personally. He asked me to convey that the entire family would like to meet with you to offer a formal, in-person apology. And your brother wanted to know if you would still consider being his best man. I leaned back in my chair, my gaze falling on the detailed architectural drawing of Greywood Estate on my desk. 10 years of quiet work. 10 years of being underestimated. 10 years of building a world they never bothered to enter. And now they were standing at the gate, asking to be let in. Sarah, I said. Yes, Elias. Tell them yes. We'll have the meeting. Schedule it for Saturday lunch. In the private dining room at the observatory. The observatory was my flagship restaurant, on the top floor of the Obsidian Hotel, a room with a panoramic view of the entire city and a 3-month waiting list. And Sarah, sir, make sure the meal is unforgettable. The private dining room at the observatory is a study in quiet elegance. The walls are paneled in dark, reclaimed fir, the single table is a massive slab of polished granite, and one entire wall is a seamless pane of glass, offering a breathtaking 180-degree view of Port Blossom nestled between the river and the hills. I arrived early, standing by the window, watching the city breathe below. This hotel, this room, was perhaps my proudest restoration, a monument to the beauty of seeing potential where others saw only decay. They arrived together, a tight, nervous cluster, my father, my mother, Leo, and Clara. They stopped just inside the doorway, their faces a mixture of awe and apprehension as they took in the room. Elias, my father said, his voice husky. He walked toward me, his hand extended not for a dismissive pat, but for a formal, uncertain shake. Thank you for seeing us. Please sit, I said, gesturing to the table. As they settled, servers moved with silent grace, pouring water and presenting menus. This place is astonishing, my mother whispered, her eyes wide as she looked out the window. I tried to tell you about it when we acquired the property, I said gently. I said I was expanding into hotels. We thought you meant you'd gotten a job as a manager somewhere, she confessed, her gaze falling to her lap in shame. My father cleared his throat, his posture rigid. Elias, we are here to apologize. An apology that is long, long overdue. He looked at me, his eyes, for the first time I could remember, holding no judgment, only a deep, sorrowful regret. We were wrong. We misjudged you, son. Terribly. We built a narrative about you to fit our own narrow worldview, and we never once stopped to see if it was true. Leo leaned forward, his hands clasped tightly on the table. Eli, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry for being an arrogant, oblivious jerk. I'm sorry for dismissing you, for not listening, for letting Mom and Dad turn you into the family cautionary tale. Most of all, I'm sorry we uninvited you for my wedding. That was unforgivable. Why? I asked him softly, the question I truly needed answered. Why did you see me that way for so long? He looked down. Because you didn't follow the rules. You left a great school. You didn't get a corporate job. You never showed off or talked about money. I assumed that meant you were failing. And if I had been? I asked, my gaze sweeping across all of them. If Hearth and Vine was just a small, struggling business and I was barely making ends meet, what then? It was my father who answered, his voice heavy with a terrible honesty. Then we likely would have continued to be wrong. We would have continued to pity you and feel superior. And that, I think, is the most shameful part of all this. Clara reached out and placed her hand over mine on the table. Her touch was warm and steady. We want to start over, Elias, she said. All of us. We want to know you. The real you. My mother had tears streaming down her face now. I am so proud of you, Elias. Not just for all of this, she gestured around the magnificent room, but because you were still willing to help us. After everything. You're a better man than we deserved. You're my family, I said simply. That has to mean something. Even when it's hard. Leo stood up then and walked around the table to where I was sitting. He looked down at me, his own eyes glistening. I know I have no right to ask this, Eli. But I have to. Would you please be my best man? I looked up at my younger brother, the golden child, who for the first time looked humbled, uncertain, and real. I saw not the successful lawyer, but the boy I used to build forts with in the backyard. I saw a man finally ready to see his brother clearly. I stood up and clasped his shoulder. Of course, Leo. I'd be honored. The wedding, 3 weeks later, was not the grand affair they had originally planned. It took place in the sunken garden at Greywood Estate as dusk settled over the valley. 80 of their closest friends and family gathered on the terrace lawn, surrounded by climbing roses and the gentle sound of a trickling fountain. It was intimate, breathtakingly beautiful, and more emotionally resonant than the cavernous gilded ballroom ever could have been. During my best man speech, I looked out at the small crowd, at the faces of my family in the front row. When Leo and I were kids, I began, raising my glass. He was the one who followed the map, and I was the one who was always wandering off the path, convinced there was treasure buried in the woods. For a long time, I think my family thought I was just lost in those woods. I smiled, catching my father's eye. What they didn't realize, what I was only just beginning to learn myself, is that the goal was never to find a buried treasure. The goal was to build a home. Success isn't about following someone else's map. It's about having the courage to draw your own, to build something meaningful, and to create a space warm enough to share with the people you love. I turned to Leo and Clara. May you always have the courage to draw your own map together. And may your home always be filled with love. Later that night, as the party wound down, my father found me on the stone terrace overlooking the gardens my company had so carefully restored. Elias, he said, standing beside me. I have one more question. Why didn't you just tell us? A financial statement, a magazine article, why let us go on being so ignorant for all those years? I looked out at the moonlit landscape, at the quiet, enduring beauty of the old estate. Because I didn't want you to be proud of my balance sheet, Dad, I said. I wanted you to be proud of me. I wanted you to see the value in the work itself, in the choice I made. I wanted you to see me, not what I owned. And we failed that test, he said, his voice thick with emotion. You did, I agreed. But you're passing the one that matters more. Which one is that? This one, I said, turning to him. The one where you choose humility over pride. The one where you're willing to admit you were wrong and start over. That's a foundation you can build anything on. He put a heavy hand on my shoulder, and for the first time, it felt not like a judgment, but a blessing. I'm proud of you, son. For your success, yes. But more for your character. As I drove home under a canopy of stars, my phone buzzed with a text from Leo. Thank you, Eli. For everything. I'm sorry it took me so long to see you. I'm the luckiest man in the world to have you as my brother. I smiled, a real, unburdened smile. I typed back a simple response. Welcome to the family business. Because in the end, that's what it had always been about. Not the buildings, not the companies, not the money. It was about restoring something far more valuable and fragile, a family. And as I sat in my office the next Monday morning, the early light once again filling the room, I felt a sense of peace that was deeper than any success. I hadn't proven them wrong. I had simply given them the time and space to finally get it right.